Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this month's June Monero Coffee Chat. My name is Justin. I am the head of the volunteer community work group here, and we have a large number of other people here today joining us in the coffee chat. We're going to go down the list of people just so they can all introduce each other. Of course, this is supposed to be an interactive, conversational sort of setting. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them in YouTube. We can see them. We'll answer them here as long as they're relevant. And we'd really like that sort of audience participation. So let's start first. Alex, can you begin by introducing yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. My name is Alex. I call myself Alex, and I am a Monero enthusiast. Professionally, I work for a German-speaking Bitcoin and blockchain tech news magazine, and I take part in the Berlin Monero meetup every month. So for those who have been there, have probably met me, and if you haven't been there, you should go in June. I think it's the 7th or 8th. The second Tuesday of the month is the meetup in Berlin in room 77. So yeah.
Awesome. So I have a quick question for you. I saw recently that it was MSNBC, I believe, that was filming something in room 77 about the whole cryptocurrency space and what the establishment means towards the community. Can you speak a little bit about why they were there and what they were doing?
So in the beginning of the week, there was the block show in Berlin, and the block show has become quite renowned as a blockchain event. I think Bobby Lee was there, the older brother of Charlie Lee. And so I think it's CNBC, the crypto trader. And I was randomly at room 77 and he walked by and he was like, oh yeah, I can't have a trip to Berlin without visiting room 77. And then they shot a couple of shots there and were on their way again. But it was a funny coincidence that I was there.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you're able to have that exposure. I'd like to have you speak later in the talk a little bit more about that. But I think we can move on to have Diego. Is now a good time to have you introduce yourself to everyone? Or are you too busy with the other chat moment and come back?
No. It's okay. We're pretty much done. So my name is Diego Radrar. This is what most people know me as. I do whatever I can in the Monero community. I made the current website design. I'm involved with the DEF CON stuff going on right now. Anything that needs doing, work closely with Kavri and the core team to get some stuff done. So contact me if you need anything. Just be aware my to-do list is probably upwards of 3 dozen things to do. So we'll see. I get to stuff as soon as I can, but I try to do anything I can except coding. So that's me. You know me.
Okay. Thank you, Diego. Up next, we have Surrey.
Hi, everybody. I'm Surrey Noether. That's my pseudonym anyway. My real name is Brandon Goodell. I am one of the 2 paid postdoctoral researchers at Monero Research Lab. Recently, I have been reading about keys, and that is my life. And let's see here. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. I'm pretty boring.
All right. Thank you, Surrey and Brandon. Nice to have you on as always. Let's see. Lucas, can you introduce yourself? I think this is the first time you've been on one of these. Okay, you muted yourself, so if you could just take care of that, and then you can go.
Yeah. Whoops. Thanks. Hey. Yeah. So I'm Ziagu or Lucas, and I am volunteering to participate more in the Monero PR and try to help the Monero community in any way that I can. I'm not necessarily coder or technical, but do what I can to see to help. I started the Church of Monero in an attempt to provide a kind of another structure to unite the Monero community is the intent. But I can kind of, I guess, talk about that later. Some people, I understand it's maybe a little controversial, and that's okay.
Wait, did you start a literal church? Like you registered a church?
No, so it's not an established nonprofit or anything like that. I call it the Church of Monero, and it's the domain Church of Monero, but it's more church in spirit than in form.
Do you have the intent to register that at some point?
I don't know. Maybe. I think right now I have the vision for it is to use I think religion has the capacity to be very viral in nature and to spread quickly through communities. And I think that I can leverage that functionality of that meme to help spread adoption of Monero, and also use that to build interest in pursuing something cool like going to the moon and using a 3D printer to build a moon base, like the Monero moon mission. So if we get to the phase where we're actually like doing stuff like that, like building 3D printing robots or satellites that we can actually do, then we'd probably register so we can actually take legitimate, processes and do that.
Awesome, Lucas. Thank you. Then we have Knife of Pi, who you had to have stumbled across at some point. Can you introduce yourself, please?
So, of course, I go by Knife of Pi. I'm one of the most prolific commenters, I suppose. And when I'm not making Reddit comments or talking on IRC, I'm working on Cake Wallet, which is the iOS Monero wallet. And I don't think I'm as important as some of the other people here, but I'm a fairly well-known member of the community, I suppose.
Can we begin by having you speak about your process for joining Cake Wallet? So did you previously have an iOS developer background, and you just contacted them regarding how you could see improvements, and then they were like, you kept calling them so much they just got to know you by name?
Well, pretty much, yeah. I have been an iOS developer before, and I started out just finding bugs in their wallet because, look, I got an iPhone, I need to use Monero, and if there are bugs, I want to get them fixed. So I started out just testing for them, and slowly it started to become more and more official, and now I just work with them helping develop their wallet.
So is that a full-time arrangement, or is it a part-time?
No, it's a part-time thing.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm glad to see that you were able to, well, it seemed like to an outsider, like an immediate sort of you proving your worth to them and jumping just directly on their team.
Yeah.
In addition to their wallet kind of coming out of nowhere. So
yeah. I was shocked too, because we had all this X wallet controversy about this ring size 7, which was not non-standard at the time, and then 3 outputs, and then suddenly, bam, this new wallet comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see that you were involved in that project. It's always nice to see you around, wherever that might be, whether it's Telegram or Reddit or anywhere.
Well, now I've been banned from Telegram for a month because somebody reported me for spam.
Gotcha. That's unfortunate. You have to get another burner phone, I guess.
Yes.
All right. So M2049R, are you available right now to introduce yourself to everyone here? It says that you. Okay.
I'm here. I'm M2049er, and I'm the developer of Monero, the Android Monero app.
All right. Yeah, we've had you on previously. It's nice to see you again here. Thank you so much for, again, making the time. So now that we've gone through the introductions, I mean, the formal part of my job is basically over, right? It's just going through the aspect of making sure everyone's represented at least once. So now we have the time to just talk about whatever is really interesting to talk about. Of course, we have comments coming in saying that Knife of Pi is a beast. I mean, that's just objectively true. So is there anything that people have been working on with Monero recently? I know that we're still sort of waiting for the point release. We have point 12.1 that came out with the daemon. I think they're waiting for a retag for 12.2 for a ledger tweak in addition to many other tweaks. And we're still waiting for the full GUI implementation. So that's kind of what's happening on the developer side of things. On the community side of things, there's a lot going on too. In August, there's DEF CON happening in Vegas, and there's a lot of work going into that. And we have a lot of other people here that are much more familiar with that sort of planning process than me. So Diego or Scott, who just joined in the chat, do either of you want to take the reins, or perhaps both of you, talking a little bit about what DEF CON is, how Monero plans to communicate with people at DEF CON, and how it's a good opportunity for Monero and the Monero community to reach other open source privacy enthusiasts there?
Go ahead, XMR Scott, go for it.
Yeah, let me see. Can you hear me? Or
would you mind introducing yourself first, because you just joined? If that's okay.
yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'm XMR Scott, been with the community for roughly a year and a half now, kind of dabbled in random things across the year and a half, started giving presentations in the kind of Phoenix metro area and did a little Japanese translation work. Currently looking into studying Klingon because I really like languages and maybe adding Klingon translation. But right now, primarily focused on trying to help organize DEF CON. And sort of speaking to DEF CON, so DEF CON is basically a annual convention that's been going on for 26 years this year, mainly targeted towards hackers. And within this village, or well, not this, within this conference, you have multiple villages centered around certain things. So you have like a lock picking village, a social engineering village, car hacking village, and the list goes on. So this last year there were 3 cryptocurrency related talks, kind of I think on the main kind of talk tracks. This year we are hoping to have, well, we do have a village that we're kind of co-hosting with an organization that's calling themselves the Blockchain Open Security Group. And so within that village, we're hoping to have a bunch of talks, workshops, and kind of live demos. The call for papers itself ends June 5th. So if you yourself already go to DEF CON, or hearing about DEF CON has piqued your interest and you would like to give a talk about something that's kind of blockchain, cryptocurrency related, the means to submit your idea would be through bcsovillage.org. I'll leave it to SGP to post a link in the YouTube chat for folks. But yeah, so it should be great. We're always looking for volunteers to kind of help out and potentially staff tables or do any number of things. And the next work group meeting will be at basically next Saturday, so a week from now, at 15 UTC. So if you're based in Pacific, or I should say, if you're based on the West Coast of the U.S., then that would basically be 8 a.m. and corresponding times. I think that's largely it. Very rare can chime in.
I think you pretty much covered everything. Yeah, I guess the only thing to just highlight again, we are always happy to have more volunteers. We're always happy to have more people man this station, that type of stuff. We're still sorting out who gets what tables, who gets what space, who gets what presentation type stuff. But you don't have to be a super contributor in this, that, or the other way to Monero to think, well, you know, I don't think that I can volunteer because I don't know those things. It's all right, you know. And actually, that's one thing I want to highlight really fast about a lot of the people that are here. A lot of people say, oh, I don't code. I mean, here as in the coffee chat, they're like, oh, I don't code, but I see what I can do. I see what I can do. And so for anyone watching, you know, that's a question we get a lot. I don't code. I don't know how I can contribute. A lot of the people here, they don't code either. I don't code, and we all find ways to contribute to Monero. So yeah, back to DEF CON, we're always looking for volunteers. Please, if you're interested in any way, contact us, and we can see where we can place you.
Yep, and our primary means of communication, I forgot to add, is the pound Monero dash community IRC chat room.
All right, thanks for the rundown. So Alex said he had to leave pretty soon, so I'm going to make sure I ask a question about the Monero Berlin community meetup group that you have there. So I know that this started around a year ago. I would like to know how frequently you meet, what sort of meetings you have. So is it a more casual, we all go to a bar, we just exchange conversation and rant about Verge? Or do you like sit through about like a conversation about, well, this is how like ring signatures work, and we're going to go into an attack vector on them specifically? Like what sort of events do you hope to have and do have there, have had in the past? And what sort of members come, and what is your relationship with the rest of the Berlin cryptocurrency community?
Yeah, so just to make sure everybody gets this, I did not start the Monero Berlin meetup. However, I was entrusted with the relic. I can show it to you. It's like a table stand that is always on the table when we meet. So this thing right here. And the people that come are very diverse. Some are just come for the first time to see what all the fuzz is about. Others are, go more frequently. We meet once a month in room 77. So if you have been there, this is a really casual bar. It's not a venue to hold presentations and so on. And usually you just chat about, oh, what's been going on this month? When is the hardware wallet finally coming out? And you do have some kind of Satoshi Square where people trade XMR for fiat, and yeah, so it's kind of a chill get together. On the other part, I did hold a presentation 2 weeks ago, I think, in Essen, so here in Germany, and I did it in German as well, about Monero, and I did that like in the light of my activity as an editor. And I think since I focus on like pure cryptocurrencies, as I call them, so Bitcoin and Monero mostly, I'm going to speak more about Monero, especially in German. So if anybody's listening that doesn't speak English, well, there's more German content coming soon. And member-wise for the meetup, it's usually around 10 people. We start at 7 every second Tuesday of the every second Thursday of the month. And there's about like 10 to 15 people. Sometimes there's a coder, more or less, people who know how to read code, which is great because like you just, or like Scott just said, I don't know how to code. And my way of contributing was to print 1,000 of these stickers and plaster them all over Berlin. And yeah, so if anybody is in the German region, I think there's another meetup in Munich, but I haven't been. Berlin is a great place, and yeah, please come.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm starting a meetup here in Minneapolis, which is where I'm based. Do you have any advice for me starting a new meetup group in terms of how to get people who are just showing up that perhaps are there to learn more about cryptocurrencies or want to make money, how to encourage them to stay and learn more? Because I have a student group and I speak with a lot of students, but I always feel like there's still a larger barrier when I speak to people that are like in their 30s or 40s that come and are perhaps they might even have like a financial investing background. So like, what advice do you think you would have for like for someone who's starting a new meetup group and wants to just have like a quality engagement there?
I would say advertisement is very a big deal because first of all, you have to make sure that people actually come to the event. But I'm kind of torn on this point, because sure, it's great if more people come to Monero, but what I appreciate about this project is also the quality of people that do come, because it's usually not the verges who ask when Lambo, but it's the people who ask, well, what does it really mean to be private, and why am I not private on Bitcoin? And then you get more more education across to the people, because they are actually interested and not just asking for price. But yeah, I don't know. I'll make sure to ask next time and give you a better answer then.
Yeah, I'd like to hear some of the thoughts from the people who go to the Berlin meetups. Why they like going? I'd like to know more about that.
I would also like to learn more about that, because I was considering starting a meetup in Denver and picking a location, picking ways to advertise. These are little details that are sort of annoying to for newbies.
Yeah, so I think a great place to start advertising is the subreddit. I think a lot of people are active on there, even lurking. Then the Telegram groups, for Germany, we do have a German Telegram group for Monero. And Telegram, I know it's for scrubs, but it's just where the biggest crowd hangs out. So if you want to go fishing, that's a nice place to start. Maybe even flyers around the city or the college campus. And, the good thing about Monero is you can always ask the controversial questions. And usually that gets people emotionally invested in some part. For me, speaking personally, why I go to the meetup is because I meet a lot of people that share the same passion. It's just fun to talk about, and it's also fun to, I don't know, learn more about things you didn't even have on your radar, like new software, new websites to check out that are somewhat related to Monero. So yeah.
I will say I have some experience running a more of like a Bitcoin meetup, and it is hard to how do you kind of filter and deal with people who come to the meetup and they're just like, hey, I just want to make money, and how do you actually have conversations with people who are interested in the technology and kind of building community and such. I don't know, but I think what you present and what you talk about is important. And so if you're focusing on trading and on those sorts of things, you're going to attract those sorts of people. Like Need Money 90 has a good policy in a Telegram chat for a room called Priceless. And the rule is you just don't talk about the price of any currency, and it filters out so much spam. It's
yeah. I always like to make sure those conversations are separate, and I'm glad that that's an important aspect of this community, that we can talk about bulletproofs. We can talk about the hardware wallet without being the immediate next sentence being like the price. And I appreciate that a lot. And I think most of the people in the community really do too. Okay, so speaking of Need Money 90, I see that they're here now. So Need Money, can you introduce yourself to everyone? And you sent me a message. Do you have something to tell everyone here too? You can jump directly into that.
So can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So right now, my name's Need Money 90. I've been with the community coming on 2 years now, I think. I'm a moderator on various chats. I help keep things together, run our chat relays. Right now, I am in the middle of building a market-making bot called Mercado. There's a couple of the people that are working with me on it. One of them is NASA Welder, who also built Stilumo. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that. It's a neat cold storage app for. I'm not sure if it's just Monero or cryptocurrency in general. I think it's.
Lunlumo.
Sorry, Lunlumo.
Stilumo is my blockchain art project.
Okay, sorry. I'm getting all these names mixed up. Okay, Lunlumo was made by him. And then the other main contributor is 15CHR Jeff. He's been extremely helpful. But we are nearing a release at this point. At some point, I'm going to be talking to the BitSquare people to see if we can actually get some integration with multisig in. and get automated liquidity put up on BitSquare. So basically, you just hook up your Bitcoin and Monero wallets, and it will let you provide liquidity in an anonymous way, which will be very, very interesting because you won't have to trust an exchange. We'll have to see actually how this pans out, but it's going to be quite cool, I think. So yeah, watch out for Mercado.
That's super exciting.
Yeah, that really sounds awesome. Have you spoken to anyone from BISC from that?
Yeah, I opened an issue on their GitHub. They told me to get in contact with them. I was talking with the Monero Research Lab about multi-sig and atomic swaps. Atomic swaps will make it completely automated. If we use multi-sig, we can probably get it automated using one of them as a trusted third party to just sign off on transactions where both parties say everything is fine. And like they'd only get involved in disputes, which is what they do already. So I actually think that's plausible. But if we can get atomic swaps working, that would just be like absolutely next level. We could get completely automated liquidity frozen for an anonymous cryptocurrency without needing an exchange. And I think that's going to be absolutely massive. Okay, yeah, sorry, my enthusiasm is showing.
Yeah, that's not just massive for Monero for the sake of just someone who has a bot, though. That's really massive
this is
for anyone.
For any cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it's massive for anyone who wants to use these decentralized systems. Yeah, so that's excellent news. Your enthusiasm should be showing.
So yeah,
right.
that's it on my front. That's my update.
Okay, thank you, Need Money.
Congratulations on that, by the way. That is quite an accomplishment to get going down that road. Need Money. Good job. We all thank you.
Most people think that all these trading bots have to be active or have a strategy based on charts, and this is passive and makes money off of those people. So
anything that makes money independent of market performance is a winner in my book.
Yeah, it's gonna be really, really cool to see exactly how much take up there is in the community.
All right. So, Sure, I'm going to have you just give you an open question. Is there anything that you would like to talk about Monero Research Lab developments? I know Sarang is leaving for a few months to teach a course at Duke. Can you speak perhaps even a little bit of, I'm a little bit aware of the details, but I imagine you're probably more aware than I am.
Sure.
Those details.
So basically, Sarang is going to be gone for a month to teach cryptography to, I believe, talented high school students or talented undergraduates. He's designed a 4-week or a 3-week course for these kids, and he starts out with teaching them how one-time pads work and how the Enigma machine from World War II worked. He has them break that. It's a basic cryptography class, but he's adding a flavor to it with cryptocurrency. And since he's taught this before, he has these like living notes that he's fleshing out into a textbook of some sort. And I believe that he intends on adding cryptocurrency content to that. So he's not being funded for the next month while he goes to teach, but he is teaching. So he'll still be participating in the Monero Research Lab community for the next month, of course. And when he comes back, we'll welcome him with open arms. In the meantime, he's still taking care of the bulletproof auditing situation because since he's in charge of the whole administrivia around bulletproof audits, we're not transferring control over that while he's gone. However, let's see here. We have been talking about doing various optimizations for bulletproof regarding powers of 2, non-powers of 2 numbers of outputs, because we think that basically for future applications of bulletproofs, we're going to need these various optimizations. And so he and I have started to discuss behind the scenes how to do a more general approach to bulletproofs. In addition to that, I've been working on the multi-sig paper. Just like a month ago, not even a month ago, a paper came out that was discussing a security flaw, and well, not a security flaw, but proved that MuSig, the Bitcoin Schnorr-like multi-signature scheme, can't be proven secure. And the multi-sig scheme that we were working off of, we started to aggregate keys in that way. So in order to prevent a certain, so to be clear, the scheme is not provably secure, which means it could be secure, but there is no proof for the security of the scheme. So we would rather not use something that doesn't have a security proof, even if we think it is secure. We can't think of any attacks on it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing. So we have taken a step back from multisig. We are looking at how to make sure that everything flows correctly and can be proven secure rather than just flying by the seat of our pants. It's been a long road for multi-signatures, and the fact that this paper came out recently discussing the security implementation, security flaw, it's lack of proof. It's not even a security flaw. It's a huge wrench in the works. As far as technically writing the paper goes. As far as the security that ordinary users are experiencing with multisig right now, currently discussing how that works out with what we're dealing with. But basically everything in my life right now involves looking at keys very closely and looking at proof structures. And Sarang is going to be gone teaching for the summer. And other than that, MRL is kind of a two-man show, and half of us are gone and the other half is busy. So we're kind of plodding along as quickly as we can. Does anybody have any questions? I babbled for a while.
So Sarang,
you
he said he was doing something about bulletproof optimization. He was working with Monero on that. Are you familiar with his work there?
Yes. So one of the things that Sarang and Monero have done is essentially save 7 to 8 hours of sync time 6 months from now. So it's sort of like an advanced, sort of like a hard thing to think about, but basically 6 or 7 months from now, sync time is going to be remarkably faster because of these speed optimizations that Monero and Sarang have been making. The idea here is to do these kind of fancy elliptic curve operations that normally take a lot of steps, but to squeeze them down into as few steps as possible so that they execute as rapidly as possible. And this involves so many different layers of optimization that usually it's not really worth going down until you start needing to count microseconds. And when we're talking about verification time on the cryptocurrency networks, microseconds can mean a huge difference in throughput. So Monero and Sarang have gotten the speed of verification of bulletproofs down, I think, to 14% of what they originally were. So like they've shaved off like 76 or 80, or yeah, 86% of the speed or of the verification time in bulletproofs, which is insane. And bulletproofs are already like 99% smaller. So basically we've taken the biggest part of Monero. I shouldn't say we. Sarang and Monero have taken the biggest part of Monero transactions, range proofs. They've made them super tiny and lickety split like a bullet. Which is probably why they're called bulletproofs.
So can you speak a little bit about how that impacts the fees? Because I remember there was some conversation, at least there was concern that the size would be smaller to a much greater extent than the verification time decrease. So do they closely match up now that you're not really concerned about this sort of possible attack vector? Or is this still something where the difference you still anticipate being large enough that a lot of effort will have to go into calculating these fees?
Actually, it's funny because we were previously looking at fees in terms of size, which is like kind of like an absolute count of the number of things in the transaction. And it used to be that both time and space were proportional to the number of things in the transaction. And now space is very much tinier and time is dominating everything. But time is still linear in the number of things in the transaction. So essentially, it turns out that we have very little fee manipulation to do to take into account the new structure. The thing is, Now the space of things is so small. Space is not what we're compensating miners for our fee structures. We're only compensating miners for the verification time that they spend checking these bulletproofs. But it turns out that it's going to cost them kind of a linear cost, just like it did before. So overall, the fee formulas aren't going to be changing too much. The absolute number of fees or amount in fees is going to be decreasing significantly. But other than that, yeah, it basically, after a long discussion, it turns out that fees are a lot simpler than we thought they were.
Okay, so, so do you anticipate that the fees will drop similarly proportional then to the drop of transaction size? There's no concern that it won't drop nearly as much?
Oh, well, I mean, that's a question of absolute fees, right? That's instead of looking at like the formula of how fees are computed, it's like looking at the constants involved in that formula. And as a mathematician, I'm really bad at thinking about constants. Physicists are like, oh, the gravitational constant, I know that number. And I'm like, it's G, it's a letter. So the specific number of atomic units in Monero, piconero, is that what they are called? The specific number per transaction, I haven't been party to that discussion at all. I've just been looking at the shape of the formula. So the goal, though, is that now the bulletproofs are so much smaller, Monero fees should go down significantly.
Okay. Well, that's great news at the verification time.
Yes, it is. And it looks like M2049er disagrees that physicists don't like numbers, which is probably also fair. I shouldn't mischaracterize physicists. I'm sorry, physicists of the world.
You know, they make up a very large proportion of our coffee chat viewership. We might have to kick you off the next coffee chat because you've said too many numbers.
I have a physics minor. I know what I'm talking about.
You giving us an appeal to authority now?
Trusted third parties, trusted third parties.
Okay, well, that was a really good MRL update. Thank you so much, especially not only for covering your ground, but of course for Sarang's too. So thank you for representing both of you. And then we have a few people that are trying to get a little bit more specific on some of the more hard numbers of fees in the chat. And so I'm just going to try and summarize it. That for every transaction that you could make now versus with bulletproofs, the version on bulletproofs will always be smaller. And I think if you just need to give yourself a number, just give yourself a 75% number in terms of fee reduction. Do you think that's probably fair?
I think that's probably a fair rule of thumb, but you know, this is like a change that the whole community needs to decide upon together. And how much we think it should cost to send exactly one Monero under normal network conditions. You know, depending on the amount of size of the transaction, these are details that many people need to be involved in, and there's no mathematically perfect answer. So I can't like take a derivative, set it equal to 0, and be like 12, dude. So, which is unfortunate. I wish there was a best answer here, but really the community needs to hash out how fees are going to work. But I think a 75% reduction is probably what I would ballpark it at today, but call that naive, maybe, just to be safe.
Okay. Well, now you know that now it's going to be quoted on every news article. So,
hello, all journalists.
Link them to this point of the video directly. Okay, a few more comments coming in. If there's anything else that people want to talk about during this time, by all means, it's your time too. So make sure to let it know. If you just have a question for anyone here or you know, anyone else, make sure to let us know. We're asking, will we see a working hardware wallet demo at DEF CON? I know you can look at the specific information for the Foam Funding System proposal. I can link that later, but does anyone here know on the top of their head within the details of that proposal whether or not they wanted to have a functional demo at DEF CON. Given silence, I think I'll just, I think I can go find that. Yeah, I'll post that in the chat for the person who had that question. And too many people that are saying when ledger, it's like right here already. So, yeah, let's see. Yeah, a lot of people I think really want ledger at this point.
But the strange thing is you can already use ledger. I've been using ledger since April.
Yeah, so can you just talk people through with 12.1 and 12.2 how it's simplified the process for using Ledger, and someone, even though they can't use at the moment Ledger's specific app, how you like what process you use, and do you think a normal person would be able to do that in the command line?
Well, the process is actually pretty easy. You only need to generate the wallet on the command line. So Monero wallet CLI -- generate from device, and then the name of the wallet. And it'll take a couple of minutes probably to run some operations on the actual hardware wallet, and then it'll create a wallet, and you can actually load that wallet into the GUI. And from the GUI, you can use that wallet as normal.
All right, so that sounds pretty simple then. So basically, as long as someone's familiar using the command line wallet at all, that it's a very small additional step, if any, to even use it with Ledger.
But it would actually be trivial to allow Ledger wallet creation from the GUI. I'm not really sure why it hasn't been done yet.
Yeah, do you know, is there a markup or a mock-up for how they anticipate the GUI page looking for the Ledger integration, or any hardware wallet integration, really?
I'm not sure if there's a mock-up, but most likely it'll just be in the wallet creation screen. So you'll have create wallet, load wallet from seed, load wallet from keys, generate wallet from Ledger, something like that.
I'm still sort of looking for this hardware wallet. Okay, well, is there anything else that people? Is there anything else that people really want to get out? We have another 10 minutes or so of chat left.
I can briefly talk about the Church of Monero a little bit. So really, I think there's if you go to the Church of Monero website, you'll see we have a few missions already, and so the purpose of the Church of Monero to unite the Monero community. Basically, the intent is you see various cryptocurrency communities suffer from a fork attack where they split the community into two different groups, like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, and that can be a problem. And so what I'm doing with the Church of Monero is trying to create kind of a meta community where people can unite on more of a, maybe say a spiritual, if you're not religious. And religion is, I understand, can have its problems. So I would say the Church of Monero is more spiritual than religious. And to unite the community on that level, to also pursue noble, worthwhile goals. And so something like the Monero Moon mission, something that the press can talk about that's not like a darknet market, something that we can, in the Monero community, work towards, that can really make a positive impact in the world and give some people something positive to talk about. And also, I think of the Church of Monero as a volunteer marketing arm for Monero. I'm not getting paid. I'm not asking for money. I'm not accepting donations. The idea is I want to begin to educate people within the Monero community on how Monero works and how they can kind of spread the good word of Monero. I think a form of marketing done organically is better than maybe just doing like some massive advertising campaign. We're not trying to do like any sort of ICO or any of those more hype sort of things. More keeping it on the down low and talking with people and kind of slowly integrating the idea through the community. And as new people join, we're not trying to hype it up too much, but provide something so that when Monero in the future is under heavy attention and scrutiny from the world, as it will be, because it is the best form of money, we need to have these sorts of marketing and public relations structures set up to deal with that attention effectively, so that it's used in the right way, and that right way being for the benefit of the Monero community. So that's why I'm here and how I hope to help. And
can I make a recommendation for the Church of Monero's goals?
Of course, absolutely.
We need some sort of like little self-replicating nanobots to go out into the Oort cloud and like eat helium and ice and make more of themselves. And I think that would be a great extra mission to add at the top of the Church of Monero.
Okay.
Let's see if we can get funding from the Dash Treasury.
We'll apply for a Zcash Foundation grant.
It's kind of trolling and serious and joking at this. It's kind of, the Church of Monero is an attempt at really like paradox, where you have church, which is heavily religious and more dogmatic, and then you have Monero, which is heavily academic and peer-reviewed and scientific, and the two of those are seemingly like incompatible. And so my attempt is to try to reconcile these two things that are just like not the same. And so another form of paradox is, we're going to pursue building these like self-replicating nano robots that build on the moon, something crazy. But if an ICO can hype their new Internet 2.0 white paper and make
4.0.
4.0, why can't we say we're going to build self-replicating nanobots on the moon? So
is there actually a 10,000 Monero reward for 3D printing on the moon?
Oh yeah, there is. Yeah.
Yeah, as far as I know, like there's someone in the community who's said for over a year now that that's what they're offered as a prize. So
that's totally cool. That's
right?
like really getting to the point where like it might be financially worth it.
Raise the fund. Like the fund is open. We have 10,000 Monero that was collected. It is open for anybody who 3D prints on the moon. They will get 10,000 Monero. If Monero like goes way up in value, that will incentivize a space mission to the moon to 3D print there. Yeah, it's 100% legit.
Isn't that the same amount that Monero.org asked for to buy their squatted domain?
I have no idea. I don't remember that statistic. I know it was over 100,000 US dollars at the time they quoted it. I just don't know what it was. I think I'm going to rename this video like to the 10,000 Monero giveaway just to get a few extra.
He claimed, yes, the owner of Monero.org wanted to sell the Monero.org domain name for 10,000 Monero or best offer.
He still does, as far as I know. I feel like at some point, honestly, this may be pretty unpopular, but at some point it would be beneficial to get that Monero.org, just because if somebody else besides us gets that Monero.org, I realize that on Google getmonero.org shows up first, but they'd be able to confuse a lot of people, especially if somebody malicious gets this.
But they've already been confusing people because they have downloads to the 0.11 binaries. So people download them from Monero.org and they say, well, where's my Monero? I downloaded the wallet from Monero.org and my Monero just never arrived. Well, because it's the old wallet.
So, I mean, it's a sucky situation. Really wish that it wasn't like this, but at some point we gotta talk. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe we can talk them down to a certain price or something like that. But I feel like it would be very beneficial to the community.
Given to terrorists, 10,000
Yeah.
10,000 is like insane. No way.
Well, of course we wouldn't. I wouldn't recommend paying 10,000 Monero.
Not only recommend, I think that paying 10,000 would be unconscionable.
I think that it would be reasonable to pay to offer an amount in fiat, and then offer to pay in Monero, but the amount has to be pegged in fiat because fuck those guys. Pardon my language.
You know, and it is business-wise, it is a valuable domain to have. So I don't expect them to let it go for $100. You know what I'm saying? But man,
10,000 is still a lot. 10,000 is absurd.
It's not uncommon for valuable domains to go for tens of thousands of dollars. I'd say like $10,000. What do you say? Yay, nay? If nay, okay, then that's all the Monero community would ever be willing to put down. But
so we have only about 5 minutes left, and there's one big topic of news that we did not really cover. It's the revelation or the announcement that Ricardo had left Globy, had left MyMonero, or at least if he had not already left Globy, was in the process of leaving Globy to work on another startup called Tari, which is building assets on that's kind of, it uses its own blockchain, but it communicates and settles still with Monero's blockchain. Does anyone have any thoughts on what this really would mean for Monero going forward in the community? Are there any concerns? Is it all positive news that people would have?
I think it's going to be really, really good for the economy, especially for Ticketfly to get involved, is pretty big news. I mean, we earlier this year had Project Coral Reef happen with Weezer and Mariah Carey stuff, where we could buy those with Monero through Globy. My main concern, though, is actually has nothing to do with blockchain. It has nothing to do with the Monero economy or Monero. It has to do with like the ticket industry being jerks and somehow like coming up with some weird smart contract system where you can only you can totally go scalp your ticket, but then you have to like pay a fee to the person who originally issued the ticket, like stuff like that. I can totally see heavy applications laid on top of a protocol like this that could lead to an industry like the ticketing industry to do some even shadier stuff than they already do. I mean, everybody knows what Ticketmaster does with their customers. So I don't know. Like, I think I'm super excited about the news. I'm wary about what it means for concert goers, honestly.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast that he had, and it was how you could use smart contracts to take fees on additional reselling, which, yeah, I can see pros and cons, and there aren't really any pros for the consumer there, despite how they tried to spin it in the conversation. Does anyone else have any thoughts, either on how much the process for purchasing tickets is horrible, or on more broadly on Tari and how it will maybe change how Monero is referred to in a sort of conversation?
I'm honestly fairly indifferent about Tari. The idea that it's tied to the security of Monero when really its own blockchain, like it's really just the mining that kind of combines the two, which is cool. You know, it gives some, I guess, a little bit more incentive to mine on the Monero chain, and that's kind of cool. And I don't know, the fact that it's Fluffy Pony makes a lot of people go a buzz, but in terms of how it directly affects Monero, besides giving it a little bit PR in a few different areas, and the fact that they do give good PR for Monero and they are Monero positive, it really does not affect us all that much, in my opinion. Well, I guess the one thing that it does do is they say that they're not just going to be developing for Tari, they're going to be developing research and code for Monero as well. So if they contribute back in that way, then obviously that is going to be a benefit for Monero. But the project itself, neat idea. it's in regards to Monero, the actual project is neither here nor there in terms of what it's going to offer the Monero community, in my opinion. So I don't know, nothing for me to get too excited about anyway.
I think most importantly, it will change the sort of conversation people have with Monero. I don't know if this is really still the case, but when I was going around Europe about a year ago, Ethereum was the real big buzz. And everyone was like, well, does Monero have any plans to do smart contracts? Does Monero handle those? And you're like, no, like at the moment, it just like at its core, Monero just wants to be a very good store of value, ability to transfer funds effectively and really privately fungible, etc. You know, the typical spiel you give people. And they're like, oh, well, you mean it doesn't have quantum, it doesn't have like the ability to write solidity on there? And I think that at this point, at least, it will be an answer for people who are looking for that sort of development, or for people who find that sort of value in decentralized systems. I think Monero is probably large enough that it might, if Tari continues to receive public exposure, it might move Monero more so into that conversation. I'm not saying it like will or anything. I know that Tari will be my response in the future if people ask me about, like, well, can Monero do this?
I think there's two real big things about Tari, and the first thing, as you mentioned, Justin, is the image of Monero as this darknet drug-based currency. It's like, well, no, now we're also doing raves and concerts. But in addition to that, there's if 10 more Taris appeared tomorrow and 10 more Project Coral Reefs, that would be like huge for Monero, but it wouldn't change the underlying technology. And really the thing is these projects are a sign that the underlying technology is working and is doing what it's intended to do, and that our development at Monero is proceeding appropriately. If it was not happening that way, then these sorts of projects would be, you'd see a lot more fly-by-night sort of ICO scams show up claiming new Monero smart contracts, and they would never ever deliver. And the fact that we have like one big project there, and we have like the Project Coral Reef thing reaching out for payment processing, it's a sign that the economy is developing in a way that I think is scamless. I don't want to say scamless or scam free, but more scam resistant. And so I think that at the very least, what you're seeing is Monero is becoming more institutionally accepted. And those institutions are new institutions, or they're institutions that have been around for a while, like Ticketfly, but they're willing to try something new, as opposed to what you see with like Bitcoin or Ethereum.
All right. So does anyone else have any last thoughts on this before we conclude for today?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't aware that I guess it didn't occur to me that Tari was a separate blockchain. But I don't know exactly how it's gonna do its privacy thing. It'll be interesting to see how the project develops and to see how if it's building off of Monero's code in like a similar way. Is it something that Monero could integrate? I don't know. These technical questions that.
My understanding is that they're going to shoot for something sort of like the counterparty protocol, but with Monero. And since that hasn't been constructed yet, and a lot of the methods of exchanging information haven't really been defined in the Monero space, there's some technical challenges to be overcome. So I'm just also not quite sure exactly how all of it's going to work.
Yeah.
All right. So I think with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for participating. Diego, Knifer Pie, Need Money, Scott, Surrey, M2049R, and Lucas. Nice to see you all here, and I hope to see you again next month. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.